Welcome back, world, to the Verbal Intercourse Podcast. Got your host, Nick Walker, back in the building with you today. Shout out to all the subscribers, the listeners, the people that's been supporting the podcast, all the guests that's been on the podcast, really rocking with you over here at Verbal Intercourse. And we going to keep on pushing. So today, got a special guest in the building, Mrs. Krispin Watson. She's a realtor, a podcaster, a business owner, and also a mom, right?
A mom.
Right,
Yes, that's the
right,
first thing.
right. So shout out to having her on the podcast today, and we're gonna get right into it. So today, we're gonna
Yeah.
talk a little bit about millennials, home ownership, what we need to do to get a home, different things we can look for, and also we're gonna talk a little bit about Crispin's podcast, her business, everything. So we're gonna get right on into it. So tell me a little bit about yourself and tell the audience about yourself today.
Yes. So first, I just want to thank you for actually having me on your platform to come on as a guest. I'm so excited. I always get excited when I get like podcast interviews because they're always so much fun. But a little thing about me, I'm from Grenada, Mississippi. It's a very small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's business in Grenada. But I went to school there, born and raised. And then I went to Jackson State, where I got my bachelor's degree in political science with a concentration in legal studies. With the hopes of going to law school, life happened. I had my daughter. That's a story for a different day. But I got a job in Jackson, actually in Clinton, and I was working there for a while. And they wanted me to move to Illinois. And I'm all for Illinois. I love Chicago. It's one of my favorite places to visit during the summertime. But this was like some small place in Chicago. I had never heard of it. It was like hours away from my family that lived in Chicago. So I was like, I won't go. And they fired me. So
Right.
I was like at home chilling for a couple of months. And my supervisor ended up calling me one day. It was like, hey, I'm going to be working in Alabama. I need some people to come out and work with me. And that's how I ended up in Alabama. Needless to say, I don't work for them anymore. I am a full-time entrepreneur. I am a real estate agent here in the Metro Birmingham area. I am a mom. I'm just me.
That's dope. That's dope. So yeah, they offered you a job in Illinois. So how'd you end up in Birmingham?
Yeah, so after I didn't take the job in Illinois, my old supervisor said, hey, they're moving me to Alabama. So I need you to come out, work with me. Do you want to do it? So I was like, sure. I wasn't working at the time. I needed a job. I was a mom at this point. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. Alabama is better than Illinois at this point. So I moved out there and was working and ended up, getting into real estate. And that's just kind of what I do.
That's dope. That's dope. So talk to me a little bit about your experience of being a realtor during the pandemic, because a lot of things are happening, I feel like, with the housing market or whatever, because you read one article on Forbes, they tell you one thing, then you read another article on Forbes and they tell you something different. So I know you got firsthand experience. So talk to me a little bit about how it has been being a realtor during the pandemic.
Yeah, the pandemic happened. What was it, March 2020?
Yep.
I was actually going through real estate school at that time. I was like just finishing up, getting ready to take my national and state exam. So I signed up for that, and the world shut down. Everything went on a pause, so I had to wait a couple months before I could actually take my test and get licensed. So that happened. I got licensed, but honestly, during the pandemic, I was blessed. God blessed my business during that time because interest rates were at an all-time low. That was if you didn't buy a house during the pandemic and you could have, you missed out. You really missed out. But interest rates were at an all-time low because the world was in a panic. They didn't know what to do. And, administration was trying to help homeowners, help millennials, help whomever during that time. So a lot of people got into the housing market. They took advantage of the low interest rates, which is kind of why we're in the market that we're in right now. Like we're in a seller's market. There's an influx of buyers, but there isn't enough inventory to house everybody looking for a home. So with that, you're getting into different multiple offer situations. You're seeing people going above and beyond asking price for houses just because there's so many buyers out there. So many more people are buying houses now than they were before.
I did see that. I feel like I kind of missed my chance to get a house early in the pandemic, but
You're one of those.
right. But it
It's
was
never
so
too late, though. It's never too late.
it's never too late. Yeah, I
Mm-mm.
hope not, but because it was just like, it was random. The pandemic was so random. It's like we saw it in
Yeah,
China, but we didn't. We was
yeah,
like, that ain't gonna happen over here though, and because it's been pandemics over in Asia and stuff like that. Well, not
yeah,
pandemic. It wouldn't be considered a pandemic since it never hit U.S. But
yeah.
it's been like
The
epidemics
difference
in
there,
Asia.
yeah.
Yeah, and it never makes it to U.S. soil, and then it hit
But
us.
this one,
Right, right,
yeah, that's like a ton of bricks.
right, for sure. So yeah,
Literally.
yeah, your mic just went up randomly, but cool. But yeah, so yeah, let's talk a little bit about the millennials and the issues that we have. And of course, I feel like everybody is in student loan debt almost. Of course, we're all living through a pandemic. A lot of people have been working from home, as well as you got a lot of people that's really essential home health. Well, I'm a home health physical therapist, but I'm in healthcare. So you got
Hmm.
people that's working in healthcare during the pandemic, and you've had um, inflation. Inflation has hit us really hard, get from gas
Oh,
prices
yeah.
to everything. So talk to me a little bit about any advice that you would give a millennial um, in order
Yeah.
to get a home, because I feel like a lot of us desire homes, but we're all paying rent. We're all living in apartments or
If you can
townhouses.
pay rent, you can pay a mortgage. That is how I look at it. And when you are paying rent, you're paying someone else's mortgage. So the student loan saga that you speak of, it's not that's not the deal breaker for you getting a home. And a lot of things that happened with the pandemic, they changed federal guidelines when it came to counting student loan debt and your debt to income ratio. Look at your debt to income ratio when they go to qualify you to buy a house. So say for instance, I believe they cut it in half. So, and I'm gonna tell y'all a little way to get by that in just a moment. But before they cut it in half, I believe they were taking 1% of your student loan amount. So let's say you have $100,000 in student loan debt. So they're taking 1% as your monthly payment. That's $1,000. So they're saying, okay, hey, and let's say you have a car in your name. So you have a car note, X amount of dollars. You have a credit card bill. Let's say you paid that $50 a month. You have some other random thing on your credit, $50 a month. All of this debt is adding up into your debt to income ratio. And so they're adding that 1%, $1,000 as like one of your monthly income payments. And that was affecting a lot of people from getting homes that did have student loan debt. So with the pandemic, they cut that in half. Now it's counted as a 0.5%. So instead of $1,000, they count it as 500 if you owe 100,000 and so forth if you do the math. But that's still a lot of money to put into your debt to income ratio. So what's the average, I would say, monthly salary? What do you think the average is in Mississippi?
The average monthly salary in Mississippi, if I would
For
say
like millennials, you would say.
for millennials, um,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be if it's 12 months in a year, and I think the average person in Mississippi probably makes around $30,000. Like if I'm just being statistically, like the average person makes probably around 30. So I would say probably about maybe 2,000 a month, a little bit over.
Mm-hmm. Maybe like 2,000 a month. So if a mortgage lender is looking at your income and you're making $2,000 a month and you have $100,000 in student loan debt, although they've cut it down to that 0.5%, they're still adding $500 of debt on you. So out of your 2,000, they're looking at, okay, we're taking away 500 because they have to pay that every month. We're taking away the car note because they have to pay that every month. second one are the credit card bills. And they're seeing what income is left, and that's how they're determining your debt to income ratio, to how much they can qualify you for. But to get around that, get your student loans set up. And hear me closely when I say this now.
All right.
Get your student loans set up on income base. Call them, take them out of deferment, whatever. Call them and be like, hey, I want to set up a payment plan on my student loans. I can only afford to pay $25 a month. That's something. Like if I wasn't paying nothing before, they'll be happy to get my $25. So they'll set you up on income. Now, I don't know what they ask you to verify. I don't know if they're looking at check stubs or what have you, but I've had plenty of people to get their student loan set up on income base. But so instead of them counting that $500, they're only counting your debt for student loans every month is $25 now. So that's qualifying you for more house. That's lowering your debt to income ratio because you want that as low as possible. So remember that if you're looking to buy a house and you have a ton of student loan debt and it's affecting your debt to income ratio, get them set up on income based. And
Hey,
they can count that.
that's a good ass tip. But at the same time, yeah, you can get them set up on income base. But somebody like me that's a physical therapist, like I started out getting set up on income base, and I was just like, I
So
mean,
how much were they making you pagement?
it was like I just was like, I'm not paying that every month. Like, I make a good amount of money, and they was just like, okay, we want all of it, like today. Like I just was like,
Okay, well, maybe scratch that idea. I don't know.
no.
But they're seeing it as you're making enough money to actually pay and afford your student loans. But
that's not realistic. But I will say this. I will say this though. You can set up a payment plan. It might not be income based, but I definitely get what you're saying because they, long as you paying, they can't really just mess up stuff.
so you can set up your own payment plan and
Yeah,
pay whatever you want to pay.
yeah, that you can. I think they have like where you can set up where you can pay the lowest amount. They give you like the lowest amount that you could possibly pay.
Well,
And
do that.
yeah, and that's what I do.
Do that. But every situation is different. That's probably best for people that do make, a substantial amount of income to where they are requiring these bigger payments on income base. So yeah, set yourself up on a payment plan. And after you close, the lender doesn't care what you do with it after that. Put them back in deferment or whatever you were doing before. But as long as you can show documentation showing like this is your monthly payment, they'll count that instead of that 0.5%.
What are some things that can really affect the closing process last minute? Because I feel like people get that last minute and
they get
over.
comfortable.
Yeah,
They get a little excited.
yeah.
Yeah. I personally had a client. We were under contract. It took us a while to find a house in this crazy market. We're probably like 2 or 3 weeks from closing, and she went and got her credit ran to buy a car. So with her doing that, I guess they shop your credit around sometimes, like depending on what your score is, trying to see who'll give you the better rate. And they shopped her credit around to 26 different people. So she had 26 different pools that appeared on her credit right before closing, knocked her credit score down to where she couldn't get approved. Like when just yesterday, before she went and did this, she was good to go. I was like, wait till after closing. Like, was it this serious?
Wow.
But yeah.
That's something that you wouldn't really think about though.
Yeah, well, yeah, you will, because I go over with my clients in my consultations, like, look, do not do anything. Like after you do this application, these people run your credit and you're going through the process. Don't start any new accounts. Don't co-sign for anybody. Don't go furniture shopping. If you're going to finance it, do not do it until after you close. Do it the day of closing, after you sign the paperwork, because any little thing can affect you. Don't quit your job. People think that they won't call and verify. They will call the day that you're supposed to close and be like, hey, this just don't work here. Just wanted to verify. before we go through this process. So you'll be surprised. Like people will quit a job. It's like, oh no, they're never gonna know. Yeah, they will.
Dang, that's crazy. That's crazy. So what would you think would be the pros and the cons of actually building a house versus actually buying?
Yeah, they both have different pros and cons. It's just depending on what you're doing with the property. Say, for instance, a new homeowner. I personally like new construction myself because it's new. No one has ever lived in it. If you catch it at the right time, sometimes you may get to have a little say so and like the design, the granite, the backsplash, things like that. Great. And new construction sellers offer incentives. So if you need help paying closing costs or down payment or something like that, usually they'll offer you an incentive if you use one of their preferred lenders. So that's another thing that clients have been struggling with out here is getting sellers to pay closing costs because there's so many buyers. You're competing against people paying cash. You're competing against people paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over the asking price. You're dealing with people saying, hey, I'll buy the house as is, no repairs. I don't even have to get it inspected. So you're up against that. So with going new construction, you're up against that with a resale, with a home that's already on the market. But new construction, you can kind of avoid all that because you just go meet with the builder. It's a seamless process. Take your realtor out there. Hopefully it's me if you're in the Birmingham area and get set up and you just wait for your house to be built and you can go check on it throughout the process. But as far as a pro for a resale, a home that's already currently on the market, say you want to invest, you want to start an investment portfolio and get renters. You wouldn't really want to spend money building a house just to put a renter in, unless you're trying to like build a community or something like that. But if you're just looking for like a turnkey property, like a property either you're going to flip or just buy in whole, get a renter, definitely get one that's already built on the market, moving ready, so you can start making money without having to put money towards repairs and cosmetic updates and things like that.
Wow, that's dope, man. You sound knowledgeable. I'm gonna definitely have to run this
Yes.
podcast back like a few times, so kind of jot down some notes and stuff you said.
Yes, take your notes. This is very important information. And our like millennials, like I want y'all to get in on home ownership like ASAP because you gain so much equity. Like, say for instance, I had a client the other day. He's actually going to physical therapy school, did a consultation, great. But he's paying like $1,800 in rent. That's a whole mortgage payment. That's like a $350,000 house payment that you're paying in rent. So make it make sense. Don't you just want to pay money to something that you can call your own? You can sell it, you can make money. They say real estate and tech are the two easiest ways to get wealthy. So if you haven't bought some property, I am encouraging you to buy some like ASAP. Even if you're buying grandma's house from your family, try to do that. Just something to say, hey, because they're not building any more land. Like there's no more land. What we got here is what's on earth. So
Right,
you might want to grab a piece of that pie while you can because prices are going up. Inflation, you spoke about inflation at the beginning of the podcast, is definitely happening in the real estate market. Houses are going up. The houses on this street that I'm actually on, people were paying like 145,000 max tops for these houses. A house just sold across the street for 220,000. So you do the math. This person sold their house. How much have they made?
like 80 something racks. Yeah,
Easy money. And
yeah.
all you did was live. You lived and you paid your mortgage. That's all you did.
Wow, that's dope. And it's
We
definitely
have to get in on this generational wealth. We have to become homeowners and just have to, do something for those that are coming behind us.
yeah. I feel like a lot of us we're fighting those generational curses that we got bestowed up on us from our
Yes, it's
ancestors.
a real thing.
Real and home ownership is something that a lot of people didn't grow up in homes. I was blessed to grow up in a,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's definitely a subject that a lot of us don't understand until we be like, let's
Hmm.
go home, and we be like, yeah, we said it easy, but it's way harder than than one would imagine, I feel like.
Yeah, and honestly, it's really not hard at all you have to do is get your credit in line. The lowest I've seen them then they say on paper like the lowest you can go is like a 540 credit score, but you kind of want to at least try to work to be around a 620 or 640 so you can qualify for incentives that sometimes first time home buyers may qualify for, or and sometimes a lot of those are income based as well. So if they were taxing you with your physical therapy, I don't know if you would qualify for any of these. But if you get yourself to a particular score, there are some programs that will pay $5,000 toward down payment. There are some programs where you don't have to pay a down payment at all, because another myth is that a lot of people think you need like a ton of money to buy a house, and you really don't. But you need something, but you don't need like 20% to put down, because there are programs where you don't have to put anything down, but you will need money for closing costs and things like that. And sometimes you can get that covered. But that's why I say speak with a licensed professional so we can get you on your way.
So what's a good down payment?
Whatever works for you. If you are able to put 20% down and that's what you want to do, so you don't have to have any private mortgage insurance, go for it. But typically what I've seen majority on an FHA loan, which are popular loans, a lot of people get them, they're asking for 3.5% down. That's probably the minimum that you're going to pay unless you get one of the 0% down. So in conventional loans, I've seen some of those at 3%, so a little bit better than 3.5. And I've seen people put down 5%, 8%. It just depends. And that's where your credit score plays a factor. The better the score, the better your interest rate. Sometimes the less you have to put down. So credit is very important. We need to start teaching that in our communities.
Yeah, like they need to start teaching it in high school, these
I
economic
agree.
stuff, but they always have like the gym teacher or somebody that like the basketball coach or baseball coach teaching it, and it don't out. So
Yeah, like I can't think of a time where I've ever used like algebra and geometry in the real world.
right,
But they definitely need to teach like getting your credit, because if you start when you're young, you will be set off on your way. So,
for
but
sure.
again, that goes back to those generational curses. Like if you don't see your parents or whoever is bringing you up, paying their bills on time and talking about credit and making sure their credit is, where it needs to be, you won't be exposed to that. So it's not like it's not your fault. If I'm saying, if that's anybody out there, like don't think it's you, but you can do better
Real,
by
real,
contacting someone that's willing to help you and just willing to get you through the process. So it's not a hard process, to go back to that. Definitely not a
real.
hard process. It starts
Yeah,
with your credit.
everybody that's listening, listen to Ms. Watson or hit her up, and she'll tell you how to get that credit right.
Yes, even if you're in Mississippi, I can assist you. I have colleagues that work in Mississippi or wherever you're listening from. Just don't hesitate to reach out.
For sure. So let's transition a little bit. Let's get into you. Let's talk about Life, your podcast, which I have checked out and I thought is really dope. I like the setup. I like the wide variety of guests that you're able to bring on the podcast, which to me makes
Thank
a good
you.
podcast. So yeah, shout out to you. So let hear you talk about it a little bit. How long have you been podcasting, and where do you see it going?
Yes, I've been podcasting since 2019. I think I dropped my first episode that summer. And it started as just like a hobby. I like to talk. So it's like, that's perfect for me. Start a podcast. But I also like to learn. I like to have purposeful conversations that have substance and I can actually learn something from. And I always learn something from every single person that comes on my podcast, whether it's like an upcoming rapper or if it's like somebody on TV or if it's like a CEO or a business. I learn something from everybody. So that's why I personally podcast. I like what I get from it, and the knowledge that I get from it, I love to share it with the world. I feel like people tell me some good stuff, like they put me up on tips and games and knowledge that they've invested thousands of dollars for. They will come on here and kind of share that with you. So it's just definitely kind of like a learning thing for me, but also a hobby and also like a service to others.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I enjoy podcasting to have meaningful conversation like you, and to basically
Yeah.
be able to learn and just vibe out with the person that I'm on the podcast with. Like, I really look at it
Yeah.
therapy for me, and just a way to be creative. And just like you, once I heard my first podcast and once I was a guest on a podcast, then I was just like, dang, maybe I should do my own thing. And
Yeah.
I've enjoyed doing it, and it's been a blessing for me.
Yes, me too. I actually love it. I actually did like a podcasting masterclass for like a summer or so ago, just for anyone that's like a beginner and they're thinking about starting a podcast. Like I just walk you step by step through how I started mine. So if anybody wants to link to that, I could definitely send it to you.
That's dope. That's dope. So, has the podcast been able to, I would say, bring you more customers into your business?
No, not yet. I would say not my real estate business. What it has done has allowed me to make so many different connections. The podcast has allowed me to make some money. So it's like it's a place for it. I've met say for instance, I've had Nicki Minaj's makeup artist. Her name is Mila Thomas, lives in LA. She came on the podcast just talking about how she became a celebrity makeup artist. So cool, loved her spirit. We really vibe. And she ended up hiring me to do some work for her after that, like some digital graphic content creation for her. So you meet different people, and it just kind of puts you in so many different rooms. So that's kind of like my thing with the podcast. Like I love it. It's like, and once I come on a podcast or I have someone on my podcast, I feel like we're family after that. Like
Yeah,
I just feel a connection with my, like, y'all are my friends now. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Whenever I have people on the podcast that I might not personally know that well, but I've been admiring them from the far in the work they do and the creation that they do.
mm,
Definitely, like, we definitely homies after that.
right.
So shout out to you. So,
Yeah, thank you.
but yeah, so we're gonna close this podcast episode off with some good words of encouragement from you, or for any advice you have for any person that got that 6-figure loan debt, or anybody that's just really want a home, or anybody that wants to create a podcast or create a business, or any type of words of encouragement for that person.
Yeah, so I would say no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's buying a house, if you're working on your credit, if you're trying to start a business, whatever, just get started. Like that's the first thing. Because a lot of times people let fear stop them from doing things that like deep down they really have a passion for and want to do. But they say, you're not really passionate about it if it doesn't really make you nervous, or, if it doesn't bring like a little bit of fear out of you, but you can't let that stop you. So get started, reach out to somebody. There are so many resources out there. Reach out to me if you're looking to buy a house. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, reach out to either of us. I'm sure Nick is here to help you guys learn and grow and kind of get to where he is. But definitely use your resources and get started and remain humble and stay on your journey, because it will get hard, but it's doable.
Those some great words of encouragement. So everybody that's out there listening, take the advice of Krispin Watson and just get started and get on your grind, man. Shout out to everybody that's gonna listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Drop some on realty, podcasting, and just getting started and getting on your grind. So shout out to mentally, and everybody stay safe out there, and we out. Peace.
Yes. Shout out to you. Thank you again for having me.